Corrections officers at the Lorain County Jail.
Now, we've already reported several officers have been accused of mistreating inmates. Now, another officer has allegedly paralyzed a man. The FBI even opening its own investigation.
19 Investigates Mike Mason exposing how this officer has close ties to the top official at the Lorain County Jail and warning some of these images are difficult to see.
The case you mentioned involves a Lorain corrections officer accused of slamming a man into a wall, partially paralyzing him. Public records show the officer was reprimanded for mistreating that inmate, but allowed to keep his job. Tonight, the injured man describes his emotional ordeal while his attorney plans to file a federal lawsuit. Jeffrey Fry says one quick move by a Lorain County corrections officer changed his life forever.
Just too much to do to someone for nothing.
When it was over, Fry says he was bound to a wheelchair, barely able to move. It happened in May of last year. Video obtained from the Lorain County Sheriff's Office shows Corrections Officer Brian Tellier escorting Fry, then apparently slamming him into a wall head first.
What do you remember next? I remember waking up back in the search area, put up against the wall, sitting with my neck down.
Watch the video closely and you can see how the officer grabs Fry's left arm and slams him into the wall. Meanwhile, an Elyria police officer stands by watching it happen. Video then shows Tellier try to pull Fry up, but he appears limp and unconscious. When another officer rushes in, they lay Fry face first on the floor. He's then propped against the wall and eventually dragged inside with his feet dangling behind him.
Well, my hands and my arms were paralyzed, so they was just like Pinocchio, no strings. You know
Couldn't move them?
No, I couldn't move nothing except my neck and my mouth.
Fry is leaned against the wall until EMS arrives about 20 minutes later. Officers then toss Fry onto a cart. Video shows Tellier turning Fry onto his back and yanking him up. More than 30 minutes after being injured, Fry is finally taken to the hospital.
And you saw him get dragged like a rag doll and flipped around.
Attorney Nick DiCello represents Fry and plans to file a federal lawsuit against Tellier and the Lorain County Sheriff's Office.
Jeff's going to live with this for the rest of his life.
DiCello alleges that Tellier's actions left Fry paralyzed from the head down. The surgery to repair his broken neck has branded Fry with a long line of scars. Though he's regained much of his use, Fry says he'll always suffer lingering effects.
He's got neuropathic pain, which is consistent with people with spinal cord injury.
Yeah, I gotta keep my hands like this because when I straighten them out, they hyperextend and they go like this.
In Tellier's use of force report, he claimed that when Fry pulled away from him, he tried placing him against the wall. He says that's when Fry fell down due to his intoxication. Tellier's sergeant then approved the report, determining reasonable force was used. But records show when a lieutenant reviewed Tellier's report several days later, he discovered multiple inaccuracies. He determined Tellier hooked Fry's left arm and propelled him towards the wall in a takedown maneuver. He found Tellier mistreated a prisoner and falsified the report. As a result, Tellier was given a written reprimand and is now restricted from having contact with inmates. Court records show that 2 weeks later, the Lorain County prosecutor sent LCSO this subpoena demanding they submit all information about this incident to the FBI. Meanwhile, 19 Investigates has uncovered numerous cases where inmates allege they were also abused by corrections officers.
I do know there's a series of incidents that have occurred there that is troubling.
Last November, veteran officer Ruben Ortiz was fired after striking inmate Charles Koch more than a dozen times. Our investigation found Ortiz had been reprimanded several times in the past for mistreating inmates and falsifying reports. Ortiz is now facing criminal charges, and Koch's attorney plans to sue LCSO.
And I believe it establishes a clear pattern of conduct, not just with this officer, but perhaps beyond that, and the disciplinary sanctions that go into an incident like this.
Franklin Ward's attorney also sued LCSO last November, alleging officers beat him for no reason.
I think there's an issue with the Lorain County Sheriff's Office as we stand here today, and that's based upon the numerous complaints, the numerous incident reports, that's for sure.
In both cases, officers reported the force used was reasonable and necessary.
There's some serious matters going on at the jail right now that warrant full attention.
DiCello plans to file his lawsuit in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the FBI is continuing its own investigation. We should tell you, the jail's Director of Corrections, James Gordon, is Tellier's father-in-law. Sheriff Phil Stamiti declined to be interviewed for our report, but in a written statement, he said his office investigates all complaints equally, whether they're filed against officers or inmates. In the newsroom,